Good morning, everyone. I think we probably should go ahead and get started. Angela and I would really like to welcome everyone to the session today. TransIT 5.0 is almost here. It's significantly different. There's a lot of areas that make it easier to use, not just for the administrators, but also for the testers. And we think that everyone is going to get used to it pretty quickly, although it is somewhat different. I think I will just, with that, turn it over to you, Angela.
Thank you. So as Patty said, thank you so much to everyone for joining us today. So for starters, we're going to have, so this is going to be an interactive training session. We want everybody to be in TransIT so that you're getting comfortable with all of the clicks that I'm going through today. So if you can see in my address bar up here, but I'll also copy and paste into the chat here. The address for going to demo is similar to our production domain, just has demo added to the name. So it has been pasted into the chat if you want to just click the link there to access our demo organization, or sorry, our demo domain. As you can see, just visually, it looks slightly different, even just from the login page. So you'll still enter your exact same username. The password for everybody has currently been set to TransIT 5. And that is, again, just for the, excuse me, the demo organization. So you'll put your username in, your password in, and log in. Okay. And so for everybody, when you first log in, the first thing you're going to have to do is accept the terms and conditions. So it'll just give you a little blurb there, and it'll have you acknowledge the terms of service and the privacy policy. And that's just something that you'll have to do for your first login. And once you've done that, it's not something you'll have to do again. And so then you're going to be taken, as usual, to our projects page. But your projects page is going to look slightly different. So the first thing that we're going to, I'm signed into our demo organization, but when everybody else signs in, you'll still be signed into your same usual organization. And so it'll have all of your same content that you have. We did a data migration over the weekend. So it'll be your content as of Saturday, I believe. So you will be able to access all the content that you're used to so that you'll be comfortable with what we're doing today. So the first thing we'll go over is, as you can see in the top right-hand corner here, we used to have beside your name a gear icon. So the gear is no longer displayed there, but if you click on your name in the top corner here, it's going to bring you to the user settings page. So from this page here, you'll be able to set your email notifications. So you'll want to click the checkbox to make sure that you're receiving emails for any issues that are assigned to you. So by default, it's going to put the email address in that is your username, so the one you signed into TransIT with. But this field is free text. So let's say you decide that you want to be receiving emails from to a different email address for whatever the reason may be. You're welcome to type over that information to whatever email address you'd like. And then you can turn on to receive text messages. So the text message feature has not been activated just yet, but either way, it's still good to put your contact information in here so that it can be added to the roster to be able to have a good log of everybody's email address for, or sorry, of everybody's phone number for contacting if you're doing a round of testing and someone needs to contact you.
Hey, Angela, does the formatting matter in the phone number field?
No, it should just be, I don't believe so. It should just be your area code and phone number. Patty, are you still on?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it matters, like if you put brackets in or not.
Yeah,
Right now, I would suggest that you put in whatever format you normally use, and I'm pretty sure we will handle it, but I don't 100% know.
But as soon as that feature is turned on, we'll make sure that we, of course, have that information ironed out for you, and we'll be clear about how that needs to be formatted when it goes live. So then the next section here is your roster settings. So of course the organization is going to display the organization you're assigned to, and that field is not something that can be edited. Your roster setting is a free text field, so you can just put in what it is you're currently doing inside TransIT. So I'm training today. Your position for testing, you can click the position icon here. So this information can also be set from your testing dashboard, but if you click this icon here, it's going to open the position coverage window. I feel like I'm a little slow. Okay, I'll show that when we get to testing. But when you click that, it will open a position coverage window where you'll be able to select all of the positions that that you'll be covering for a round of testing. And then just like before, clicking your name in the top corner allows you to change your password as well. So you can just enter your password and repeat, and then save any information that you updated from there. And when you save, it's of course going to bring you back to the projects page. So something that's going to be standard kind of all across the different windows inside TransIT is that your column header one is going to be frozen to the top. So if this was a long list and I was scrolling down, it's still going to be frozen to the top. But if you hover your cursor over any of the header columns, there's going to be filter and sort options. So if I was to click the filter icon here, I could type in anything that I wanted to filter my list here. Same with the description. And then just like current TransIT, you can sort based on either the most recent or the oldest information being brought to the top. So to create a project, very simply, simple click in the icon here, and it's going to open the new projects page. So just a name and description, very similar to previous TransIT, and you'll save
Do you want us to create that project for 5.0 training?
Oh, you're certainly welcome to create this, like do this exact same clicks that I'm doing. So if you want to create that 5.0 training project, absolutely go right ahead. To edit the project, you can, oops, sorry, I didn't mean to click into it. You can right click. So right click is going to be used quite often now in TransIT, where it previously wasn't an option. But if you wanted to edit your project, you would just right click and edit and change any information that you need to change, and then save that there. If you're wanting to inactivate a project, you would again right click and select to inactivate. And it's going to make sure, it's going to confirm with you that you actually would like to inactivate. And it's going to remove it from the list. So now to get back to get to the list of inactive projects, you would right click the header here. So again, that's going to be very standard. Anywhere in TransIT where you have inactivated something, if you right click the header and select the view inactive, so in this case, view inactive projects, it'll refresh my screen, and then it's giving me the list of inactive projects. And again, right click the header to view active projects. So all quite simple there. At this current moment, we don't have merge available, but we, of course, will be adding merge back. It's just not something that I can click or show you at the moment, but it will still be available in TransIT 5.0. So sorry, I kind of jumped into things and I didn't really give an overview of what we would be covering today. So today's training is going to be focused on the functionality that is specific to site administrators. So administrators have the capability to basically do anything in TransIT. So we're just going to be focusing on those pieces that are specific to people who are only administrators. So things like setting up a new project, all of the org settings, and setting up and maintaining a round of testing, setting up users in your database. Those are all things that only administrators have access to. So we're going to go into our org settings here. And so one thing that I certainly really like in our 5.0 release is that maintaining and setting up your org settings has really been simplified. So that's something that anybody who spends time updating the user settings will certainly appreciate. So I'm just going to go down the list from top to bottom here. So in our current production domain, if you needed to set up a new facility for your organization, you had to contact Make, our support line, to ask us to create the new facility for you. But if you're needing a new facility, that's something that now the site administrators have access to do. So you would just click the facilities option here. And it'll give you your list of currently active facilities. You will click to add a new facility, give it a name. If you want the facilities to display in a certain order, you can set the sequence here. I won't bother setting a sequence, but you would just type the sequence in here and it'll list all of the facilities in whatever order you would like. And then you can save. And it's added my facility to the bottom there. As I mentioned, if you're wanting to filter, you can select the filter option here, and you could type into the filter option and press enter, and it's going to filter then to only show me the facilities that I asked for it to show. And to remove my filter, I'm just going to click back on that funnel icon and just remove the options there, and it's given me everything back.
Hey, Ange, can I interrupt for a second?
Yep.
There's a couple of people who are saying they don't have org settings. This class was intended for people who have admin access already. And so we aren't responsible for giving out admin access. So if you can't see org settings, it means you aren't set up currently as an administrator, and you'll have to ask one of the administrators from your site to grant you that access.
Hey, Patty. It's Fred.
Hello.
I was able to click on org settings, but nothing under org settings will allow me to create the settings. There's no options.
Okay, so that's going to be really unfortunate for today. We'll have to get that. So is everybody seeing the same thing, that nobody has the ability to update the org settings?
I can. I have access to add a facility.
Okay, so is there anyone other than Fred who doesn't have the ability to do what Angela showed so far, just adding a facility?
This is Jobina. I don't either.
I don't have the button. This is Travis.
Hey, Patty, I was also not able to create a project. Whenever I clicked save, nothing happened.
Okay, so it looks like we broadly have a problem right now with the admin sign on. I'm going to sign on here and see if I have the same thing if I sign on as a client admin. So I think it'll mean that this session will be largely not interactive for those people who don't have the access to do it. But I think we'll have to keep going to get through all the content, and we'll make sure that this gets resolved. And I also want you to know that for the rest of this week, you'll have access to go in and play afterwards. It should be that you have access to all the things that you currently have access to. So we'll work on resolving it, but you should be able to get in and play and have, access to your current client information. So you should be able to, everything should look familiar in there when we get the settings fixed. So Ange, I think you probably need to keep going on the training, and I'll get this logged right away.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so that is everything for facilities. So I'm going to go back to my org settings. And the next is interfaces. So the biggest change that we have when it comes to interfaces is previously you would have to go in and view the list of all of the available interface transactions and turn on, or if you no longer have that interface transaction, turn off any of the options that are applicable to your organization. But you no longer have to turn on and off interface transactions. So when you go into create a new interface, both the interface transactions and interface component are all done under interfaces. So to create a new interface, you would just click the icon in the top corner. You'll select your starting source, your destination source, and as I mentioned, you have access to all of the transaction types. So rather than having to have just a list of what you currently have available in your organization, it's going to give you the full list of what is available inside TransIT. So this field is one that can be typed into. So if you know exactly what you're looking for, you can type into that field as well, and then select the option that you'd like, and select the ending destination, the destination option. And you can give your interface a name. And click save, and it'll be added to your list there. If I was needing to only look at the interfaces that are for specific facility or specific vendor, sorry, I can type into the filter option there, and it's going to sort my list to only show the options for what I had selected. And I can remove that. As you can see, I could select multiple options here if I wanted to. And to remove, same as everywhere else. One of the most exciting options that has been added to the interface window here is that it now tells you in this column here, the scenarios column, exactly which scenarios have scenarios that are using those specific interfaces. So before you had kind of, I guess, no way of really knowing where those are currently being used. So now you've got a list here of which scenarios, and you could use the link to go into your scenario, and you can see here's my interface here. If I want to go back, I can click the back button. So it's funny because for years now, one of the big things in TransIT is never ever click the back button, because the back button does nothing for you. But now the back button does actually work inside TransIT. So I think it's pretty natural for all of us who click the back button on the internet to just instinctively, when you do something and you want to go back, to click the back button. So now it's actually available inside TransIT as well, which is great. So back to the org settings here, the issue priority. So when you view the issue priority list for your organization, you should see the full list of what you currently have set up for your issue priority list.
Hey, Ange, can I just interrupt for another second? It
Yep.
seems like people are saying that they can now see the buttons, so we're going to have to try to figure out what it was when people first signed on that they couldn't. So, Travis, what specifically did you do? Did you say you clicked the back button and then went back in and now you see it?
Yeah, I was just I had gone over to the interfaces themselves. I clicked on it just the same way that Ange did, and then went back, hit the back arrow, and then the plus button. Well, now it disappeared again. Sorry, it did appear momentarily.
So we're going to have to figure out what's making the plus button come and go. But if everybody can try to perhaps click home and then click org settings again, and then see if you click facilities, if you see the plus button, and then go to interfaces. If we can just get maybe a couple of screenshots, and if anybody can put in the chat what steps they took initially to get there, and then what steps they took to correct it, and we'll try to get this working. Sorry, Ange, keep going.
That's okay. So as I said, you'll see the issue priority list that you currently have active for your organization. If you're wanting to make an update, you can update a single field by double clicking the option that's there. So I double clicked, I'm just gonna type in S just for the sake of making a change. And then you press enter and it's gonna automatically retain your change there. Or if I wanted to make sure I was changing both fields, I could right click, select edit, and then make any changes that I needed to make to the options here. So we have the numbers displayed here, but you also have the option to sequence your list by adding a number beside your issue priority. To add a new option, same feature, click the icon, type into the display and the description. And if you want it to display in a specific order, type a number into your sequence field, save, and it'll be added to your list. If I want to remove an option, I can just right click and inactivate, and it'll remove that option. And if I realize that I actually do want that option brought back, I can right click the header and I can view the inactive options, and then I can restore whatever it is that I wanted to restore. And then right click the header to go back to all of your active options. I am going to get rid of that though. Okay. And back to the org settings. And next is issue problem types. As I mentioned before, it's going to be the same list that you have for your organization. Same options here, so I can double click to make a change. Or I can right click and edit. And I can add a sequence if I'd like.
I'm going to interrupt one more time, and that's to ask the people who are having problems if they can put in the chat what browser they're using. So as of, if anybody is using Internet Explorer is no longer supported. The same with, I mean, Microsoft in general is deprecating it. We're supporting Edge and Chrome and Safari and Firefox, but we're no longer supporting Internet Explorer. So I see somebody said that it took so the link is going to take you to whatever your settings are. So if people are using Internet Explorer and it's not working, I'd ask if they could switch to Chrome or to Edge and just paste the link into, open the browser first and paste that link in. Sorry, Ange.
That's okay. Okay, so I will go back to my org settings again. And the issue status. And same, you're going to get the same editing options that I showed. A right click or a double click, whichever you prefer. And the same for adding a new status. So with the issue statuses, we have a type drop-down list that has been added here. So let's say that you name your issue status as something that is kind of more specific to your organization, and you want to, and it's not necessarily clear whether that that status name is associated to an open issue status type or a closed one, you're able to set that, and that will help you when it comes to looking at your pie charts, which we'll look at after, which you should be familiar with from current transit. It will help to identify if it's not maybe directly evident from the name. You can assign from the drop-down list here whether or not the type of issue is a closed or an open issue. And so then that's all going to display in that column here. So in our organization here, the only options we have for close are going to be cancel or close, and then everything else is set to an open status. Okay. So then our note status, same thing, going to be all the same note statuses that we have. And the same double click and right click edit options are going to be available to you. And again, with the same options available from the right clicking of the header. You'll see when you look in the right click from the header, you've got the filter option here, but you also have the option if you want to either display or not display certain column headers, you're able to remove or add column headers as you'd like. So let's say for whatever reason, I don't want to see the sequence column. I can deselect that option there. And now the sequence column is no longer displayed for me. But if I want to get that back, it's the same thing. It's just selecting the unchecked box beside, and now I've got my sequence column back. So again, that's going to carry across all of the different windows inside TransIT. Note type. Same thing here, same list. And you're able to edit as needed and filter as needed. So I'm not sure why the issue status is showing twice. One thing that, of course, as you'll see, there are just a couple tweaks that are still being worked on throughout the week since we're not going live with TransIT 5.0 until I want to say the 29th. So there may be certain instances where we see things that are just slightly off, but just know that's because we are still just making small tweaks before we go live. Okay, position. So a big change for the org settings in 5.0 is we no longer have roles set up. So if you remember from current TransIT, we had roles that you would turn on based on the roles that you have at your organization. And then for each role, you would create a position that is going to be the position name that is applicable to your organization. So rather than having roles and positions set up in 5.0, we've gone away from using roles altogether, and now it is just positions. So basically, when it comes time to set up the positions for your organization, it would just be a matter of taking a spreadsheet, and you have the option to copy from your spreadsheet and then right clicking the header here, and you can paste from Clipboard. So I'm going to open. So I have a list of positions here. This is already the list that we have in our build. So I'm just going to add a couple at the bottom here. So if I want to get these positions in, I can just copy, so select copy from Excel, and I can go back to TransIT here, and I can right click my header and I can select to paste from Clipboard. So now if I was to I clicked my filter and I searched on those two positions that I just created. And so now you can see it's much, much faster if you already have a list of positions that are in Excel for your organization. It's much faster to get those created inside TransIT. So I'm going to actually just delete these two. So another feature that's going to carry across TransIT is when I want to multi-select things, I would just shift click and select as many options as I needed to. And then I can right click and I can inactivate these two options. And then of course, because I had my filter on, I'm going to want to get rid of that filter. So as you can see at the bottom here, it says pages 1 to 5. So that's just, we're just on the first page of the 5 pages of positions that we have. But if you're wanting to view the entire list, you would right click and say page size all. So again, that's something that you're going to see carry across the different screens inside TransIT. So now you can see I've got everything displayed on one page. It's a much longer list there. And same filter sort options that are going to be available from that right click option. If you do not want to go from Excel into TransIT because you're just creating a single position, you've got the same adding option icon there. And then you can just create a single off position from the list here. So for me, at least, that is a huge time saving feature. So I really quite like that feature inside TransIT. And hopefully you will too. So once you've got your positions created for your organization, you can then add logins. So selecting position logins. And so again, when you click the icon here, it's going to, you can select if you want the position to be for a specific vendor, you can select the option from the drop-down list here. So that's going to be populated by all of the vendors that you have at your organization, which can be typed into if you'd like. Then it's going to give you your full list of positions from the position drop-down list. If you want to make the position facility specific, you have the option of selecting the specific facility that you'd like. And then you can type in the username and password. So I will create one here. So I've given my my position a username and password, which would be what you're signing into for testing, and then click save. So previously in TransIT, it was just a single field that we instructed you to say username / password. But now, of course, it's giving you that separate field that you can type the password into. If you're wanting to make changes to multiple options at once, you do have the option to copy to Excel. So let's select all of these three options. So I did the, I selected the first and the shift and clicked the last one. And then I can select to copy to Clipboard. I can then go into Excel and I can paste those options in. I'm just gonna get rid of this column here. So let's say for our round of testing, we know that all of the passwords here need to change to, it's going to be like that instead. I can make my changes there. Select all of the options and copy. I can go back to TransIT and I can select my header and do paste from Clipboard. And so you can see that it updated all of those fields for me. So that is a huge time saver if, let's say, from one round of testing to another, for example, your passwords are changing for all the test users. It's just a simple copy to Clipboard, open up Excel, paste it, make the changes that you need to make, and then copy and then paste from Clipboard back into TransIT. So that's a nice time saver as well. So on to services. Services is quite different now as well. So before it was a list where you'd be automatically viewing the list of just what's turned on for your organization, which is still what you're seeing here. You'd have to click that hyperlink to view all, and it would take forever to view the list of everything that's there. Now it's much quicker to view that list. So instead of it blowing out and showing you the full list of all of the services plus all of the sub-services that exist inside, or sorry, underneath that service, it's now displayed in a column off to the side here, the number of options that are under the service as a sub-service. So to select a service, it's just simply checking the box beside the service that you'd like. By default, when you select a service, it's automatically going to select all of the sub-services that exist underneath that service. If I want to go and view the list of sub-services, I'm going to click the service name. And that's going to give me the full list of sub-services that exist underneath that service. So as I said, when you select a service, by default, it's going to automatically select all of the sub-services that exist underneath that service. So if you do not want to have one of the options selected, it's just a simple option of deselecting. If I want to go back to my list of services, I can just click the back arrow. And I'm back inside my list of services. So that again is one of the great updates that we've done. That in itself was quite a time-consuming exercise from start to finish, but now it's been very much simplified. So that's great. Vendors is going to be similar to the way that services is set up. So when we go and look at our list of vendors, it's the same thing. So you would select the checkbox beside any of the vendors that you want to turn on. And it's going to show you in the column off to the right, the number of products that exist underneath that vendor. So we'll just go with 3M since it's at the top of the list here. So 3M's got 6 products that exist underneath it. And so if I want to view what those products are, I can click 3M. And then it's giving me the list of what those options are. So you can, so again, this is going to be based on what your current build is. So for this particular organization, they only use, excuse me, these 2 options for 3M. That's why they are all selected, because this was stuff that was already pre-selected. But so if I wanted to include more, I would just select the options here. And that's all it takes to turn on the products that are underneath that vendor. So because the different levels are product, application, and function, when I'm under the list of products, it's going to give me the list of applications that exist underneath. So same functionality, I'm going to click the name of the product. And it's given me the list of applications that exist under it. So in this particular case, the encoder doesn't have any functions that exist underneath it, but if it did, they would display off to the right here. So again, that is made it very much more simplified. So if you turn on a big vendor, like if we think about Cerner, for example, and you think of everything that exists underneath Cerner, it can be as simple as a single click if your facility, or sorry, your organization is using all the different Cerner products. So in this case, Access HIM has 5 applications underneath it. I guess no functions in this case either, but anyways, as I said, when you turn something on, it's going to automatically select all of the options that exist underneath. So all of the products, applications, and functions that exist underneath that vendor. So if you're wanting to not use everything that's listed, you just need to make sure that you go in and you deselect whatever you don't want to have turned on for your organization. So that is the whole list of org settings. I kind of went through everything without asking for questions because everything is pretty similar when it comes to the clicks. But does anybody have any questions about any of what I've showed, or is there anything that you'd like me to go back over? Okay. So I'll also say I've got an interesting kind of setup going on because I'm in Canada and here we are still locked down. So I've got my kids at home. I've got my husband working from home as well. So I've been kind of sequestered to a different office space than I'm used to. So if you're typing into the chat, I might not necessarily see your message right off the bat. So if you've typed into the chat and I'm ignoring your message, it's not intentional, but please feel free to interrupt me at any time to let me know that you've got a question for me. So now we're going to move on to users. So this has changed quite a bit from what was what's currently inside TransIT. So when you select the users option from the blue bar, you see that you've got 3 different icons that are going to be displayed in the top corner here. So by default, you're going to be taken to the users page, which is going to be your full list of users for your organization. If you're wanting to make a change to the user that's there, you can right click to edit the user. So when you right click to edit, you've got the option to change the password for that person if you'd like. You can change their user type. And if there was a company that you wanted to assign them to, you can add that as well. So if you have a few different companies that are working with your organization, you can add them to this field here. And save. If you're wanting to add a role, so if the particular user is always assigned to a specific role, you can double click that role column and select one of the options from the drop down list here. We'll get to where the roles are in just a minute. So again, you can change if there's a note that you want to change there. If their email address isn't correct, you can change it there, or their phone number. If you're wanting to turn on or turn off either email or texting options, it can just be done from this window here. So if you were needing to do it for multiple people for your organization, they can turn on or off that information themselves, as we showed at the beginning from this option from your name. But if you were needing to do it for a mass number, you can do it from selecting these options here. It'll also display for you what everybody's roster status is here in the column. It'll tell you when they last logged in and what the update information is as well. From the right click option, you can
May I ask a question?
Yes.
So the role part is actually different from like when you signed up in the beginning and first logged in and picked the positions you would support. That's 2 different animals, right?
Sorry, say that again.
This role where you were saying
Yep.
there's a role here. When we
Yes.
first signed in, it said pick the positions you'll support. That's just it's 2 different things then, right? So, okay. Because
Yes.
it looks like
So,
I have to make all the roles here because we don't have any, but I noticed the positions were all populated when I first clicked in.
right. So your roles are going to be what is associated to plans. So you guys aren't using, haven't been using plans at this point in time, so
Right.
that's why there's nothing there for you.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Whereas positions is going to be tied to testing.
Okay.
So from that, from the user settings page, what you're turning on there is what position you're going to be participating as for a round of testing.
Okay.
Whereas your role is going to be the role of who's responsible for a specific activity inside a plan.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much.
So that will be covered in depth during the plans training session.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. So also from the right click option here, you can change the password for the user. So if you didn't want to go in and edit there, you could just select change password here, and it's just a simple single field to type the updated password for that user.
Hey, Ange.
Yeah.
Since we're in demo, if we make any changes, will they hold?
No.
Okay, thank you.
sorry, I should have mentioned that at the beginning as well. So we really do want you to take the opportunity throughout the week when you have time to play inside TransIT so that you can be comfortable when it comes time to actually go live, that you've actually done some of the clicks, so it's not just a kind of dive into the deep end. So this is your chance to play before we go live. So please do create whatever you want so that you get comfortable with the functionality. But yeah, that will it will be gone when everything's turned on. And also there's likely going to be some data migration done throughout the week. So let's say you're joining this call today, but then you're not returning back until maybe Thursday for either the tester or the plans training session. Stuff that you created today may not be here on Thursday because it got lost during a data migration. So I was just changing the password here. So it's very simple. Just type the new password in and select the change. From the right-click menu option, there's also the a change option, which gives you another list underneath there. So if you wanted to, rather than double-clicking the field to make the single change there, you could also do it from the right-click menu, and you could change the person's, let's say, their role. So let's assign, oh, there's no role for this person, so.
Hey, Ange, while you're busy doing that, can I ask a question?
Sure.
With a roster, is that something that has to be updated every time the user logs in to say what they are doing at that time?
No, that how you use I guess the roster status is entirely up to you as an organization. If you don't update that information when you log on, it's just going to retain whatever you last had in there.
Okay.
So if you decide at your organization that it's really important that you always know what people are doing when they're signed into TransIT, and you want to make sure that that field is always updated, then you would just need to communicate with your team to say, make sure you're always updating your roster status. But it's not something that has to be done every time. And if it's not done when you sign it, it's just going to retain whatever the last option was that you had filled in there.
Okay, thank you, Ange.
You're welcome. Okay, so that's kind of the bulk of what's under the right-click options here. Simply to inactivate, it's going to be the exact same as everywhere else. Select the inactivate option, which is going to put it to the inactive list, and right-click from the menu and select the view inactive users. If you're wanting to create a new user, you can do as I showed. So it can't, let's say you have a big team that's coming on that wasn't previously inside TransIT, and you've got them all built out into an Excel spreadsheet. You're able to manipulate that spreadsheet so that you can copy from your spreadsheet and then select the paste from Clipboard option. So I know there's certainly been times in the past where I've been sent long lists of users to add into a system, and someone said to me, I hope you have an easy way of getting this in. And the answer, unfortunately for me, was no. It's kind of adding everybody individually, but now you can copy and paste from Excel into TransIT, which is going to be a huge time saver for you there. But of course, when you're doing that, you have to be mindful of what all of the column headers are. So if you're wanting things, of course, to fall under the appropriate column when they're pasted into TransIT, you need to make sure that your Excel spreadsheet has the same column headers. Otherwise, obviously, it's not going to know exactly where to place certain content into TransIT. So if you're wanting to create a new user, individually, you can click the icon to create the new user. You'll give them a username, put in their last name and first name and their password. There's still no character specifications when it comes to what your password is. You'll select the user type. As I mentioned, if you're wanting to associate them to a specific company, if the company doesn't exist in the drop-down list, then you can just free text it in. And as soon as you've free texted something in, it's going to be retained. So before I showed typing make solutions in, so now it's added to my drop-down list here. So notifications can also be set up from this new user window. So your user is, of course, going to be all the user information, and then the notification is going to be what you want turned on for them. So if you want to have email turned on for them, you can also do it from this window here and type in their roster status. So that, I guess you could do that if you're turning on or doing that for a single person. But of course, when you're doing it kind of on the masses, it's probably easier to just work from this list here. It's much easier to just click a single box than have to go into each person and make the change individually. So we really tried to streamline being able to make changes to certain things much quicker for you. So on to roles. So user roles is this first icon here. And on Friday, Patty did a call with everybody to go over what would be brought in from the data migration. And she said that if there are things that are in your role column inside a plan that are not actually roles, instead they're, you know, details typed into a field or someone's name typed out incorrectly, that's all going to pull into your role field. So what she mentioned you should do before today, I guess, was to change, update everything inside your plans to make sure that everything that's in the role column is actually a role and not someone's name typed incorrectly. So you can see that there's a big long list of kind of junky things brought into here, but what you really want this list to be is more role specific type of things. So I typed interface in here and it found things that had like demo healthcare interface team. So the roles again are going to be associated to the role of who's going to be completing the activity inside a plan. If you're wanting to create a new role, it's just and then I'll just quickly jump over to plans here. So if I go inside a plan, you can see that I'm trying to assign what is, I'm creating what's going to be selected for this column here. So something like the regression team should be created as a role under the user settings. So if you had something like a person's name in here, a person is obviously not a role, but you know, TransIT isn't intelligent enough on its own to know who's a role and who's not. So if you had anything that wasn't a role in this particular column, it got built as a role. So there is going to be some cleanup that needs to happen if you want to make sure that your roles column is completely clean and only has specific role options there. So you don't want to just go and delete everything from that column, because if you do that, you're not going to necessarily know who was in that plan to begin with. What you'll instead want to do is go through your own list and pick out things that are listed under the role column that shouldn't actually be there, and go to your plan and find out where they were situated. And instead of having them in the role column, you'll want to make sure that you select them from the assigned column here. So you could double click the assigned column, and the drop down list here is going to give you the list of all of the users that are inside your build. So you'll figure out who that person was and select them from the drop down list here. So let's say, for example, I had in a plan currently, Patty will hate that I use this because she hates when people spell her name wrong. But let's say I had in the plan here, Patty Marshall previously. So it's not going to allow me to do that here, but in TransIT before, I could have just free typed into this field her name incorrectly, and it would have just retained that information. So if you had that before the data migration, you had something like that in your role column, that's what's pulling into that field now. So if you're looking at your own list and you're like, that's not a role, what is that doing there? That's where that information is pulling from. So what you'll want to do is you'll want to figure out where that incorrect information, which plan that incorrect information is from, and instead of being able to free type into this field to have something incorrect, it's only going to let you select an option that's from someone who is currently built inside your organization. So that prevents from a variety of different incorrectly spelled names. And again, we'll be looking at that a little bit more in depth during the plans training sessions. So something new that has been added to TransIT is something called contacts. So I'm going to click that icon here. So you can create content or contacts inside TransIT for people who participate, let's say, in a round of testing, but they're not actually TransIT users. So let's say you're working with some consultants and they're not going to be signing into TransIT, but they are participating in in testing, and they find certain issues during testing. By having them built into your contacts list, it will allow you to select them when it comes time to logging an issue during a round of testing. So anybody who is working in your organization that you want built inside your kind of database inside TransIT, they're not actually going to be signing into TransIT themselves. So they're not a TransIT user because they're not signing in, so you wouldn't build them under the user column, but you do want the list of people built inside TransIT so that they can still be an option to select when you're creating an issue. So let's say you want them to be the option who is the reported by. So just take a quick peek. So you want them to be selected from this drop-down list here. Right now, these two lists are previously in TransIT, they were just from the list of users or they could be, yeah, just by the list of users inside TransIT, or they were options that you could free text. It's no longer a free text option. You need to select from the drop-down list, or if you wanted to type in there just to get to the shorter list of what's in there. You can select from, or sorry, you would add them in as a contact so that they are available to be selected from this drop-down list here. So let's say a team, you could also add a team under there. So you want everybody from the regression team added, you can add them under your contacts, and then they will be available when it comes to issue reporting. Okay, so that is everything for users. Does anybody have any questions on that? Okay, I think I've covered quite a bit when it comes to the org settings and the users. So I want to just take maybe 5 or 10 minutes now for people to play with all of what I've kind of just shown you, and then we'll move on to setting up a round of testing. So unless anybody wants more time, but otherwise, I think probably if we just use about 10 minutes now to review some of that before we go on to more content, and then of course there'll be time after to go through everything as well. So I'm going to pick up again. I guess we'll pick up again at 10 to 10, so 9:50.
Thanks, Ange.
You're welcome. Okay, we are going to go ahead and get started again. So I've just asked Patty to kind of go back over what I mentioned about roles and what you're currently going to be seeing in the list of roles for your particular organization, and I guess what needs to be done to clean up the list there.
Yeah. So basically, if you didn't select and assigned from the list before, if you free texted it in, then it's going to have, multiple of the same people in there. And what I would suggest doing is going back to those plans and cleaning up in advance so that you don't end up with a whole bunch of roles that you don't need. So you can see ones where it's like somebody's name / somebody else's name, or where the name is in capitals as opposed to case, appropriate case. So if you can go in and look at your current active plans and do some cleanup in advance, then you won't get junky roles created that you don't need. Or if sometimes you said PathNet analyst and sometimes you said PathNet team and sometimes you said just PathNet, then that's going to create 3 separate roles for you when maybe all you really needed was PathNet analysts. So if you do some standardization up front, you're not going to have things to clean up on the back end. And what it's going to end up doing, if you just merge those afterwards, if you inactivate them, then it's going to blank it out anywhere it was used. So if, for example, you inactivated where it says AE, any plan that used AE would all of a sudden have a blank in the role. Versus if you go in and fix it up in advance, then you're not going to have as much cleanup work to do in this area afterwards. And the same, I think, I was not on the call the whole time, Ange, I have to be honest. In the contacts, it's going to throw a lot of crap into your contacts. And there, it'll be the same thing. If it's a closed issue, you won't care if it shows up as a blank, but there's going to be a lot of things that you want to delete and get rid of just because of the number of years most of you have been active. You'll have a lot of crap in there.
And so as long as the cleanup is done before go live, then it won't carry forward to when they go live. We go live.
Right. So if you clean up your so contacts, there's not going to be anything you can really do there because it would be way too much work to go and look for it. But if you've got active plans and you go in and you see that you had Patty and you had Patty Marshall and you had Marshall and you had Patty spelled wrong, if you consolidate all of those things in the plans to be the same, then it's just going to come across as one, and it'll just come across as the user. And if you consolidate your roles in advance, then your role file will be fairly clean. If you don't get time to do it this week, then you'll just have to do it after live the next time that you go to use plans, and you want to make sure that you have reasonable roles to choose from.
Does anybody have any questions about that? No. Okay, thanks, Patty.
You're welcome.
So now we'll move on to setting up a round of testing. So when you click testing from the top bar, you can see now instead of getting the test execution page, it has been renamed to the test rounds page. Still the same page, just a different name. There are some changes to the overall look of what we see here. So instead of the testing column, the links have been renamed slightly. So instead of saying start testing, it says start test day and the day that you're on for testing. So in this case, this round of testing is set up for today. So that's why everything says start testing day 1. And the continuing now says continue day with the day of testing added as well. To hold a particular script for a round of testing, now it's just the check box here. And when you do that, it changes the testing column to say on hold. And if you want to remove that, I'm just going to deselect the checkbox there. When you go to set up a round of testing and click the icon there, you can search for your scenarios from this top search field here if you'd like. Otherwise, of course, it's going to give you your list of scenarios here. But you do have the filter option as well if you wanted to be able to filter to more of a specific view. So let's say you're doing a process round of testing. You can type process in the filter here, and it's going to filter your list to show only the process-based scenarios in the list here. And you have the option to select all, or you can individually select whichever scenarios you'd like to set up. I guess I should select a few here. And then you're going to click next. And then you get the test round page displayed. So you'll give your round testing a name, just like we always do. You can select the start date from the calendar here. We still have the option to preset the amount of time you want your clock notification to show up. By default, it's going to be set to 10 minutes. When you turn on your round of testing, you'll want to make sure that you're selecting the appropriate time zone. So the time zone that the round runs from is going to be based on the time zone that your computer is set at. So let's say the round of testing is going to be run in Eastern Standard Time, but your computer is set to Central Standard Time. You need to, you'll probably need to update your PC just for the round of testing if you're wanting to make sure that you see all of those notification icons appropriately. You know, you're supposed to see the clock every 10 minutes, or if you get to it being 12 o'clock in the afternoon and you haven't completed at least 50% of the steps for the round of testing, it gives you that warning icon to just alert you that you're running behind. So if you care about making sure that those icons display at the appropriate time, then you just need to be mindful of it, that your round of testing is going to be based on whatever you set in this drop down here. So you'll just need to adjust your computer time zone if you care about those things showing up appropriately. So then you'll just select if you need to change the date. So let's say you want both day 0 and day 1 to be today. You can just change whatever dates you need from this drop down here. Select the appropriate dates from the calendar. And then click save. And so it's much quicker to set up your round of testing now as well. So there's still the same icons that you saw in previous testing. We no longer have the position dashboard showing here because the position dashboard has been consolidated to a filter that is inside the main testing dashboard. So we'll take a look at that in a second. If you are wanting to view the test header, you can right click on a particular scenario name here, and you can view the test header from here. And then to go back to the test rounds page, you would just click back. And it brings you back to your test rounds page. So previously, if you're wanting to view the test header, you had to be inside the test dashboard, but now you can view that from a right click from the test rounds page. So to view the dashboard, it's the same as before. It's just clicking the test dashboard icon. And that's going to bring you into your test dashboard page. When you get to the test dashboard page, you do see the position dashboard icon that's displayed here. But as I mentioned, it's not so much a separate dashboard anymore. It is now a filter option. So if I want to filter my dashboard to only show the positions that I'm currently set up for, I can click the position dashboard icon. And so if I had already turned things on inside my user settings, it would automatically set those up, or I can select from this list here. So let's say I wanted to be responsible for the EDRN steps. I typed in there, and you can either press enter or you can click the search icon. I can select the positions that I want to be covering, and then I can click save. And so when you do that, you can see that now it's taken off any of the scenarios that the EDRN was not participating in. And you can see that the position column here only shows the position that I had selected. And then it tells me the number of steps that are waiting or that I'm waiting on. So in the violent patient and the shortness of breath, I'm currently the position up, whereas in treat and release, I'm waiting on 9, and ED depression, I'm waiting on 75. If I want to remove that particular filter, I can right click the position column, and I can remove the position filter. And so what that does is it removes the filter, and then again displays the entire dashboard for me. So basically it's the same as if I had gone from my position dashboard to the main dashboard. So it's now been consolidated into one dashboard, which is quite nice. So also the dashboard is set to automatically refresh on its own. So in current TransIT, you would need to either select refresh to refresh the screen individually, or you would have to select the auto refresh and set an auto refresh for yourself, but that's no longer something that has to happen. The screen is just set to auto refresh on its own.
What is the time frame on that?
So Patty said it's currently set only to every 30 seconds.
Okay.
She feels she's working on having that changed because that seems too quick. But it is currently set to refresh every 30 seconds. That's also the same when you're looking at your issue list. It's going to automatically refresh for you as well. So if people are making changes, you'll see all of their updated information in the issue list. You don't have to do anything to refresh that list for yourself. So going back to the position dashboard, if I click the position dashboard, because I had previously selected the EDRN, now when I clicked that icon, it remembered what I had previously selected and had automatically selected the right things for me. If I was wanting to go into the scenario to where my exact steps are up, I can click from the action column. And that takes me in right to exactly where my steps are. So even though it said that there were 9 steps that were before my steps, it takes me directly to where my steps are, and you'll be able to execute your steps there. And so then I clicked back to get back to my dashboard. If I want to make sure that I'm reviewing the steps, so it says that there are 9 steps that I'm waiting on before my steps are actually up. If I want to make sure that I'm reviewing exactly what those steps are before I go ahead and execute my steps, if I click the scenario name link, that's going to instead take me to the beginning of the steps for the scenario, so I can review what those steps are before I get to my steps here. So it's nice that you have the option to either go directly to your steps or review what the steps are before your steps are up. And again, I click the back arrow to get back to my list here. And again, if I want to review or remove my filter, I can right click and remove the position filter. You can see when I right clicked there, I also had the option to select the position filters from the right click menu there. So let's say I had previously selected my options either when I set myself up using the user settings or from clicking this window here, and I had already previously done my EDRN. Let's say I wanted to add some additional positions, I can right click and select these select positions to cover. So I can then say, I'm going to cover those. And so you can change your filter, your position filter that way. So from the test dashboard, if I was wanting to view the header, I can right click and view the test header. And then I can go and either review the header, or if I need to make changes to my test header, I can make changes to the test header. I'll get more in depth into those sorts of clicks during the testing training. Tester training. And so when I go from my test header and I want to get back to my test dashboard, there's no icon to do it. It's just clicking the back button is going to take you back to your test dashboard. By default, the screen is automatically going to show you just the steps that are for today's testing. But let's say I wanted to review additional days of testing. I can click this icon here to view all of the days of testing. And then it's blown it out for me, giving me all the days of testing. And I can click back to go back to my previous view. So let's go in and I'm going to skip these first chunk of steps here. So I selected, I'm going to hold shift and oops, I'm going to hold shift and that's selecting all of them. I'm going to right click and I'm going to pass these steps. When I do that, it automatically has all of the just the remaining steps showing for me here. But if I wanted to view all of the steps, I can select the filter here. So in the currently live transit, you would have to click, there was a link to view all steps or view only the remaining steps. But if I wanted to view steps that have been passed, I can select whatever options I want here from this status filter, and then it's brought back all the steps that I've been passed. So that most commonly is looked at when it comes to skipped steps. So if I had instead skipped these steps and then it was time, let's say whatever the reason was that I skipped them had been rectified and I'm able to now execute again on those steps, I can come to my status filter, get rid of the past. I can look at all of my skip steps. I can select them again and I can reset. So that's a much quicker way of being able to reset your steps. And I know that that's definitely something that occurs from time to time during rounds of testing. So from a testing perspective, for this training session, I was just focusing on things from the kind of administrative perspective. So setting up the round of testing and some of the kind of basic view pieces. But for all of the individual clicks on when you're actually executing a round of testing, I'll be doing that in the later sessions for the testing training. But are there questions that anybody has regarding setting up a round of testing? No. Okay. So I will move on to reports. Okay. So we have, I guess, reduced the number of reports here. There were a few that weren't really reports that were being used so much, so they've been removed from the list. But something neat about reports now is you can select a report to generate, and the report, while it's generating, it will run in the background. So a report, for example, like the test planning report, if you're running a large number of scenarios in your test planning report, it would take some time for that report to generate. So rather than your screen needing to sit on the same page waiting for your report to generate, the report will run in the background and you're able to then go, after you've selected it, you can then go to other areas of transit while you're waiting for your report to generate. So I'm going to select the test planning report. I'm going to run the report. And let's say I'll just do process. And I'll select a few here. It does not seem to be accepting what I've done. We'll have to get that looked at.
Yeah, same here.
Okay. I will make sure I log that. So what's going to happen when you do that and you go back to your reports? There's an icon that's been added to the top here. So as I said, you'll run your report will run in the background, and you can go to other spots of TransIT. And when you come back to reports and click see if it did actually, it looks like it did. So that window, it should have closed for me. It looks like it accepted my action, but just didn't let me close my window. But when you select that icon and it brings you to the list of reports that you had generated, you can then come and okay, so that's not working as I expected. Just see. Patty,
I'm seeing the same thing.
Sorry, it doesn't let you open the report?
Yeah,
No.
I'm seeing that same thing.
Yeah, so it didn't let me save the, so let's go back and so I selected a test planning report. Maybe I'll just select one for now. When I click next here, it just stayed here. It didn't close the window for me.
Yeah, so we'll have to log that because it was previously working very nicely.
Yes.
Especially for the reports that take like 7 or 8 minutes to run. It's really great not to have to sit and wait. I can log that for you, Ange. Try it in the HTML version and see if it works.
Okay.
I tried that and it did the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll get that logged. It'll be working next week.
Thank you.
So I unfortunately don't have any to show then from Patty, do you have any reports that have already been generated that you can show, or is it just not going to show them all? Because it does show that it's trying to do what I asked it to do. It's just not actually.
Yeah, so the report looks the exact same like when it goes to Excel. So it would be, there's nothing special to show. It hasn't changed the report at all. So it won't let you open any of them.
No, it's thinking about my HTML. Okay, now this one is open. I had that open before. So it will still open with the, so I had generated the test planning report, so it's still going to open with the 2 different tabs, the position view and the scenarios view.
So it looks like it's working, that it's just not letting you off the screen, and so you submitted a few times, right? But I'll log that.
Okay.
And it was for all reports, right? Somebody tried different ones, so it was for test planning and for the scenarios.
Let's see if I run a different report, because so far I just did the.
Yeah, do that one.
Travis, were you doing the same report as me? The test planning?
Yeah, and that one there looks like that one hasn't been updated. That one's using the old, that one doesn't have the new grid. So that one looks like it, so maybe he just hasn't finished working on all the reports.
Yeah, I was working on I was doing the test planning one, the same
Yep.
issue, but I did find that I didn't do the HTML, I just did the regular one. And if you, instead of clicking on the report name, if you just click on test planning.xls, then it opened just fine for me. And Patty's right. I mean, it looks just the same as the old one, so no difference.
And so it didn't do the running in the background for the, and it didn't close this, but it did appear that it opened the,
Yeah, so like when we were trying to click on it, so once we had gone back to reports,
yeah,
and we were trying to click the view generated reports, and remember we weren't able to click in there either. If you just went to the actual download itself, then it was working on the XLS. I don't know if maybe yours will open now or not, but
yeah,
it seems to be working now.
It opens now. The HTML one doesn't, but this one is working now. Yeah. Okay. So the biggest report really that you are going to be generating from here is the test planning report. That's the most, I guess, commonly run one from here. And if you've run them before, you know, it takes some time to generate, especially if your scripts are quite lengthy. So it's nice that it can run in the background. You can still be doing whatever else you need to be doing in TransIT, and then you can just come back to this you generated report icon, and it'll show you all of the reports that you had asked to generate. You can view them from there. Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay, so that was everything that I was going to show for today's testing. So I know that we were booked until I think 11:30. So I can certainly stay on the call for that entire time, and people can take the opportunity now to play around with everything that we went over today. And if there's anything that you wanted me to walk you through or to look at with you, we can do that now. But I'm finished showing any new content for the administrator component. Patty, was there anything that you wanted to add?
No, I just think that the thing that I would point out is we pretty much discouraged all of you from building additional facilities because of the fact that there was a lot of work in maintaining in the org settings. So now that that's no longer true, you probably need to rethink whether or not you want to build out each of your facilities, because it does make it easier to figure out, you know, like what SMEs you need for testing if you're only doing a specific facility. It makes it nicer to, it just makes it overall nicer if you do build out your facilities. There is work to do it now to set it up, but it'll be much easier. The same is true with interface transactions. I know a lot of you didn't set up interface transactions because they were harder to set up and harder to maintain. And some of that will be shown in the user class, how easy it is now to add interface transactions, etc. So although we've given you guys more work by giving you additional functionality, it does make the tool itself a lot more user friendly. The other thing, Ange, did you point out that you know, some of the org settings are no longer there, like insurance and patient type and the transitions of care? So those are all free text entries now. So going forward as well, that's allows the person building the test script a lot more flexibility.
Thank you. Okay, so I will just sit here on mute, and if anybody has questions for me, please call out and I will happy to assist you.
Is the same functionality available, like in 5.0, available for when we use like the brackets and the tasks that pulls in from the header?
Yes, all of that is definitely still there. And
Great.
in the testing training, I'll show you that from a test, whatever, I'll show you now. We'll review this later as well, but it's nice now that from a task perspective, this is a upload task, not the best one to look at, but when I edit a test step now, so before we just had this details that you could click on the side, but now all of those fields have been brought into a drop-down list here. So rather than having to type them into the action or outcome, you can just select them from here, and it automatically brings that field into the task with the brackets.
Nice.
So that's much faster.
Yeah.
The only thing it doesn't do, and we'll have to log, I guess, an enhancement if we want it. If you select it a second time, it doesn't add a number for you. I guess for the most part, any of these fields are generally mostly one-offs. But if you need to add the number with it, you would just type the number in there like that. So when you select, it's just going to do the individual entry. But so
I wonder, Ange, if your header had an address too in it, if it would do it. Maybe not.
Well, if this is from the task piece of it, it wouldn't automatically bring it into my task, if that's what you meant.
Well, I wonder. What I'm saying is, I wonder if you had, like, if you had Fin 1, Fin 2, Fin 3 in the header of this one, if you went in, if it would. I guess it wouldn't. I guess it wouldn't know which one to do. Is why.
Yeah.
I guess that's why it is because it doesn't know which one to do, right?
Yeah. But it's much nicer to just select from a list than typing bracket, address, bracket.
Yes. I agree.
I was very excited when I saw that was added because I didn't even ask for that.
Yeah, I was sort of chatting with Travis offline saying that what we tried to do with this release is incorporate all of your feedback over all of the last 9 years. So I really would like it if this group would play with this a bit this week and then email us at support@makesolutionsinc.com if there's things that you would like to see in TransIT that you don't still see there, because we absolutely, a lot of the old enhancement requests will be closed out because a lot of them have been addressed. And if there's something that has always bugged you that you've always wanted and you don't see it, now is a great time to send us that feedback.
Hopefully you'll just see